The following is brought to you by the PLD Projects Network. It's me. It's PLD. PLD. PJ Campbell. Two mediocre white dudes on film. Because frankly, we know you don't have enough of that in your life. So we're here to give you more. And without further ado, here are two mediocre white dudes on film.
Oh my God, numbers. I love numbers. You miss us, America? You miss the sound of our hot voices in your ears while
we're watching numbers go down. We're back. This one was actually kind of funny, I gotta say. I leaned forward because I knew you were waiting for me. You thought I was going to attempt to jump into it before you did. I was just doing it to fuck with you because I kind of leaned forward.
Yeah, well, it fucking worked, you mother.
It usually does.
You know, I don't appreciate you messing with me like the first day back. It's like we took 2 weeks off because we had stuff to do, and now you're like, well, we're back, and I'm going to fuck with you on top of it. That's kind of uncalled for.
Is it though?
I mean, it is. I just spend like a week with you in person, and then you do this.
That's why I spent a week. That's why I did it, because I spent a week with you in person. I think maybe that's what it is.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's you spent too much time with me, and you're like, man, this guy fucking sucks.
You know, I wish we could have done, honestly. We did spend a week together. I wish we had enough time that we could have set aside. We actually could have done a live in-person episode of two great dudes on film, but there was no time at all.
There's no time, and that's many more stories for another day. I feel like as far as like the storytelling of the week that was.
The week that was.
The week that was. That's what I'm going to refer to it as now. I mean, it's really more of a weekend than a week, but like
it felt like 2 weeks. It felt like 2 weeks.
It was a long weekend, is what it was.
Not John Lennon's lost weekend, but it was a long weekend, and I'm sure
it could have been. It could have been a lost weekend real easily. Let's be honest.
Very, very easily could have been. I think those of you out there listen to us pretty much know what we're talking about for the most part, but you just don't know how much of it went the way it went. But we'll get there eventually someday. We're not here to talk about that today. Someday, I think we should do that sometime. I think you and I should do a Schmodown show at some point. I just think it feels right. But that's not today. Today, we are revisiting.
Talking about Team Action coming back?
Don't tempt me. Don't tempt me.
I mean, look, I want to say it right now. Do you know how happy I was to see Team Action back in the Schmodown?
You know, happy I was. Kim and I just watched that tonight because Kim hadn't seen it because she was on vacation without me, and I wanted to watch it with her. I was on vacation and she was on vacation when it went live, so we sat down, and she didn't really watch the Schmodown as much anymore. She's not a movie trivia person exactly. But she loves Ben and Jerry. She's met them a few times.
Is she married to you?
It's weird. It's strange. My pure sexual charisma, I think.
That must be.
Yeah, no magnetism. Either that or she. I don't know. Well, I'll figure it out some. Actually, I hope I don't figure it out because then I might try to. I might change it.
Don't ever ask. Don't. Yeah. You may not know the answer.
Exactly. We'll keep that to it's an enigma wrapped in a mystery, wrapped in a whatever that phrase is. But yeah. We did sit down and watch, and she has met Benninger before. I knew she would appreciate this, so she sat down and watched it. And she had a big smile on her face the whole time. This is like the third or fourth time I watched it. Big smile on my face the whole time.
I've watched it several times, and I can say now that it's like out there and out in the open. I don't know if you guys know this, but we write trivia questions for this TV show called the Movie Trivia Schmodown that's on YouTube.
Yes.
And we watch all the matches live when we're not in person. So we always have a YouTube link for the days that we tape if we're not in studio. Thankfully, this last time around, I don't think it comes as any shock that we were together for tapings.
Yeah.
That just is kind of what it is. Like, I'm not spoiling anything by saying that we taped a bunch of stuff last weekend.
You know what? Chris had actually said on the big thing today that he had tapings the weekend of WrestleMania. So it's definitely public out there that when WrestleMania was occurring, you're taping.
So we had a big tape weekend a couple of weeks ago. Well, last week. When are these? They listened to this on Wednesday, so it was last weekend.
Yeah. Yes,
last the weekend before. Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever it was, we had a taping, and that's where we were. But when we're not together, we watch things on a YouTube link.
Right.
That's provided to us by the team. so that we can watch it and make sure that things go like as smooth as possible, and we'll like line judge through the computer and so on and so forth while we have a line judge sitting in studio. Man, watching this one, it was something. It was something.
I didn't even want to do my duties, like the questions and stuff. Everything. I didn't even want. I just want to sit back and watch it as a fan. I pretty much did as little as possible. I just really watched it, and it was a beautiful thing. It was a beautiful thing seeing that in person. Sure.
Ben and Drew have always been really good to me, and I'm like very appreciative of their friendship and like the things that they've done for me over the last several years. And to be honest, I really never thought I'd see the day that Drew would actually get back in the ring, like at all. It just never felt like a Drew sort of thing. Not in a bad way. He's so comfortable on the desk. He's so good at it. He's been doing it for 2 seasons now. Yeah. I never thought we'd see the day, man.
It felt like we stepped back into 2017. I'm not gonna lie, and everything I wanted, everything
so
more.
Rad.
I mean, I think we can even say this too. I think I said it on the Action Guys, the Ben and Drew's show. Christian gets excited. Christian's gotten very excited about this season, and when he gets excited, it's a good thing. But he's like a little kid. He likes to tell people what his plans are.
You and I back to back almost every time.
We do. We get back to back calls about this was going on. He gets to get our feedback too. Like, what do you think? Is this good? Is this a good idea? Is good? And so we got this call. And he tells me, he's like, all right, he told me something about, I think he was telling me about Preston and JT that already aired, so I can say that. He was telling me about that idea. And then he goes, and this next one, all right, you can't tell anybody. I mean, this one's for you. And he told me that. I'm like, all of a sudden my ears perked up. I'm like, it can't be, right? It can't be. And he proceeded to tell me what was going to happen. And I was like, holy shit, hallelujah. I just had a shit-eating grin on the rest of the day.
It was so funny because you and I both called each other separately because we both had gotten the phone calls like within 15 minutes of each other.
Right.
And both of us, it was like, so you got the call, right? That was literally how the conversation started. And I remember both of us going, it's too good to be true. Guy's going to say no. Right. That was 100% our conversation. Guy's going to say no.
Guy's going to say no. That's what we thought. We did. Because he's been so happy on the desk, and he's great. Him and Mark are the greatest, I think the greatest
They're the
team
best
we have
people
right now.
who have ever been on the desk, period, at any time.
That's no shade towards Ken. I love Ken on the desk. I love, Christian does a good job on the desk overall. Rachel's great for IG. But Drew and Mark have a real good chemistry together.
Yeah. Ken is my number 2 pairing with Mark at this point, just because he also has like that really good pairing. And there's I like the way he enunciates things.
Yes, I do too.
Ken's a great reader.
I fully agree.
Ken is such a great reader that he would never threaten us live on camera if something was wonky. Not saying anyone would ever do that.
Right.
No one would ever do such a thing.
But ever do such a thing like that. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know who would even think about that, but but either way. We got excited about it. It got taped, and it was everything I wanted. And hopefully, you should go check that out now. It's Friday Night Titans. It's the episode where Ben Bateman challenges who, and then
number 5, episode 5, by the way.
Episode 5, yep. And then episode 6 of the next week is actually a follow up to that to a degree. You get to see them kind of actually not a team's match, but they get to kind of get some more. Let's just say we get some more love out of the two of them. So
I'll say too, man. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I'm endlessly proud of the shit that everyone behind the scenes, in front of the camera, has accomplished so far this year. Like
100%.
It's really incredible work from everyone involved, and I don't know, man. It just feels like a brand new show to me.
It does. It's gotten really reinvigorated now. We both talked about this. Christian has often decried the digital era for whatever reason. We appreciate the digital era for what it brought. I think the digital era was great.
Digital era was literally the time I took over, so I'm always going to have a soft spot.
That's where I came in too, so I definitely have a soft spot for it. But I will agree with him that when you see this in person, like this is what the show is supposed to be. In a way, and nothing against the digital era. The digital era brought us a lot of new people, a lot of new fans, a lot of new competitors, and it kept the show alive in ways that it wouldn't. But if we have somebody want to show the Schmodown to somebody, you want to show them this season. It's the best it's ever.
Yeah, I think it's the best it's ever been trivia wise, and that's not just because you and I are writing. I just really mean like it flows, and I think that over the last year or so, as you and I really started working together,
Mhm.
The show is flowing different. The questions feel different.
Agreed.
I'm really proud of the work we're doing. I'm really proud of the rest of the team and the work that they're doing. Like, it's really good stuff. And then you see what the competitors are doing. You see what the storyline stuff that Christian has been doing. You see the acting that everyone's been doing. Like, this whole season feels like the package that I've been waiting for.
Yes, 100%. And I mean, we were there when he told us the idea of Friday Night Titans, and it was kind of like, sounds like this is really what it's supposed to be.
Can I say real quick, I appreciate that Christian's entire mindset is, I took an edible and then it hit me that this is what we should be doing. And I'm sitting there going, man, that's how PLD and I write the questions.
Exactly. That's what we do. Should we say that out loud?
More drinking. I mean, it's more drinking than it is edibles. But like, the truth is that sometimes drinks are consumed while we're working, and then our best work comes out of us.
It's true. Some of our favorite questions come from having had a few drinks beforehand, because we dare to be stupid, pretty much, is what it is.
I still contend that you stopped me from putting a brilliant 5-point question in the famous actors and actresses question.
I kind of vaguely remember. I don't remember the question itself, but I vaguely remember the idea behind it. I remember being like, that was maybe a step too far.
It was the question about which actor appeared in the films From Dusk Till Dawn, Return to Horror High.
Oh, yes. The world famous Return to Horror High.
Sir,
I believe I'm not disparaging. I've said the world famous. I mean, just because
very sarcastic.
Only you and I have seen it doesn't mean it's not world famous.
That's not true. Tim Franco has also seen it.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes all sense in the world. Tim Franco. So makes all sense in the world. We appreciate Tim Franco here. I actually wouldn't be surprised if Lego saw it either. Also, she seems to be like up that alley kind of in a way.
You know who has not seen it is Kelly, because I know that Kelly is very anti-horror, and she brought that up to me the other day. And we have a chat with all the people who are patrons of the PLD projects, and
PLD products not patrons.
I was talking about Creepshow, and like I had made a joke about, has PLD let you guys out of your cage? And I put a GIF from Creepshow, and I was like, if you've never seen Creepshow, this GIF makes no sense at all, and I have now confused everyone in the chat. And she was like, I was told I would not have to watch horror movies. And I was like, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
Speaking of horror movies, what a great transition that would be. We are 11 minutes in. We haven't even touched that topic. Oh, no. Can we have one thing else? Okay.
So I'm a proprietor of, well, I mean, I guess it's kind of horror-based, actually.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm a proprietor of finding the weirdest fucking crossovers in comic books and buying them. As you are aware, I'm a nerd, and I love reading random crossovers. So I went to my local comic book shop in search of the Rocketeer #1 of the new Great Race comic, and I missed the comic by about 20 minutes, apparently, according to the shop owner, which I'm heartbroken over. So I still have not gotten a copy of the new Rocketeer #1. My heart is in pieces. However, while I was there, I did find a crossover comic that I thought that I should share with everyone, and that is Archie versus Predator and Archie versus Predator 2.
Archie versus Predator.
Yeah, and it is exactly what it sounds like. Somewhere, someone decided that Archie needed to fight the Predator, and not once, but twice.
That is absolutely bonkers. I've never read it, but I kind of almost need to now. I feel like I need to see it just to see what happens.
Yeah, I just feel like I had to put out into the world that this is like a thing that happened, and I want people to discover it. This is along the level of Archie versus Punisher, or Archie meets Punisher, which was another one that happened. So, like, it's really weird to me that the Riverdale universe continues to, like, suck in the most random IPs, and they're like, let's cross it over together.
Sure, Archie fits anywhere, right?
By the way, did you know that apparently Back to the Future is crossed over with Transformers?
That actually sounds vaguely familiar. I didn't think about it, but now that you mention it, that sounds vaguely familiar to me. Yeah,
I need to pick it up. I haven't that one. Terminator versus Transformers.
That I knew about. That I definitely knew
about. What's your weirdest crossover?
My weirdest crossover.
Like, of all the crossovers in the world that you are aware of, what is the one to you that just screams like the most bizarre?
I wish I could think of them, because mine are all generally the more specifically more notable ones, like the Batman Predator one, the Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle was kind of weird, but
made a great animated movie though.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. I want to watch that one again soon. But I don't know what else there was. Maybe it was the DC Universe versus the Master of the Universe. Those are kind of a weird. That was kind of a strange one I saw. Oh, you know what? I got it. There was a comic book, and it mixed together. Are you ready for this?
Okay.
Charles Barkley and Godzilla.
All right, that's up there with Muhammad Ali and Superman, so I'm here for it as like a weird thing.
It was way back in like the 90s. I vaguely remember this. And I started like it was like a Nike commercial at first. The idea was about it, and then like I don't know, Charles. They have like this big battle, and Charles has like the basketball in hand. And he's fighting Godzilla with his shoes, and it's so strange. Somehow, Charles Barkley wins and saves California and Tokyo. But I don't. It sounds about right.
That sounds about right.
That was the weird one. The other one I remember, now that I think about it also, I never read this one, but I saw a picture of it like at a con. I saw the comic book on sale at a convention. Jimmy Olsen and Don Rickles.
Oh yeah, that was like a real thing. That was like a big deal.
Yes,
in like the 60s or 70s. I remember that was like a thing. I've heard about that as like a look. I mean, comic crossovers are a normal thing in the business. They're a lot less prevalent, I feel like, these days than they used to be be honest. Like there was a time when the corporations were a lot more willing to play ball with each other. Like DC and Marvel used to cross over much more frequently.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, all the way through the 90s. Remember the Amalgam amalgamation comics? I
love those. Those are great. Those are fun.
I have the Lobo the Duck one still.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's so good. But it's so funny because, to your point, like you think about those ones, it's like, man, we don't do like random weird stuff like that nearly as much as we used to.
And I don't see why not. Do it.
I don't get it. Like we should be doing more things like that. Apparently, Power Rangers is crossing over with Godzilla right now. By the way,
that's an interesting choice. Okay, all right.
That's another one where I'm like, I think one day I'm going to check it out. And I know that our listeners are like, why are you almost 20 minutes into this podcast?
We haven't even mentioned the title of the movie we're talking about today.
I mean, look, I'm very good at sidetracking. I'm very good at enjoying the time. I want our listeners to get the most out of the podcast, and that means us hanging out. And it's been 2 weeks, so we had a little catching up to do. We had to get a little bit. Like
it's not catching up with the listeners, right? I get it. I get it.
You know, and they're probably like, "Man, why the hell does he keep talking about crossover comics?" Well, look, I mean, it's hard not to love stuff like this. And you know what's interesting is I discovered, segue, that the Conjuring universe now has a comic book series.
Does it really?
It does. Apparently, it started like last year before The Devil Made Me Do It came out.
Okay.
Yet a mini-series that leads into it that involves like it doesn't involve the Warrens, but it involves like the token creepy characters.
Okay.
I haven't picked it up yet, but I'm now in the market for a Conjuring comic book because that's very interesting to me.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's a big thing that WB is actually. I wonder if they got that from like the Legendary side of their partnering, because Legendary's always been very big on anytime they put a movie out, they usually do a prequel comic book.
Right, makes sense. Yeah,
that like kind of leads into the events of it and helps.
That used to be a thing. That used to be a thing all over the place. There used to be prequel comics all the time.
But Legendary, because Legendary has their own comic banner, they've really leaned on it. Pacific Rim is a perfect example of they had a prequel comic. They've done prequel comics for the second movie. They did a bunch of like tie-in comics with smaller characters.
Right.
Legendary loves that stuff. They did it with Kong. They did it with Godzilla. So it makes sense to me that WB saw that and was like, man, we should do that for The Conjuring, because The Conjuring of all universes is like the perfect universe to do this in, because segue, Annabelle Comes Home, which we're talking about tonight, is such a perfect example of what a movie to do that with, because the Warrens' creepy cabinet of all things spooky is the center point of this film.
This feels actually like the setup of a TV series. That's what it feels like to me. It feels like an anthology series with the Warrens. And I don't understand actually how that hasn't happened yet. You have
HBO Max is dropping the ball.
Completely. It reminded me, I know they had something like this back in the day. It's a weird thing, but it's Friday the
Friday
13th
the 13th.
series was basically that idea, which was kind of a weird thing. They titled Friday the 13th the series and nothing to do with Jason, nothing to do with anything except for this.
It was all just a ploy to get people to watch.
That's pretty much what it is. Basically, but this is the kind of thing, like it's kind of also reminiscent of the great sci-fi show that was on for a brief amount of time, Warehouse 13. Similar type of thing.
Sci-Fi Channel.
I love that show. I thought it was a great show. This is actually perfectly set up to do this kind of thing. And you don't even need you don't need the character. You don't need Wilson and Farmiga. You don't need the Warrens. You could actually, she's probably a little bit too big for it now. I'd actually love to see McKenna Grace as Judy Warren doing it, like being the lead in it in a way. But you could also use them too, which is one of the reasons. Like, one of the overshot about this movie itself is how well it uses the Warrens to kind of connect the tissue, and uses them well. Because this isn't just the old school thing. Like before, we had Patrick Wilson making a brief cameo in the beginning, and it was mostly stuff from the previous film. This actually has moments with the Wilsons, and it makes it feel like more of a Conjuring movie than any other.
Warren.
What I say?
You said the Wilsons.
Oh, the Wilsons, whatever. The W's.
Big W of this movie.
Big W of this movie, exactly. I felt like this actually almost felt like a Conjuring 2.5, even though I know it takes place before the Conjuring 2, timeline-wise.
So, interesting, actually. I looked into this, because we talked about this in a previous episode, about its place in time, where it's set.
Right.
According to Gary Dauberman, who directed it, there is a timeline issue in this movie, and I don't want to draw attention to it, because this movie, spoiler alert for everyone at home, this movie, I think it's the most fun this franchise ever is, and I really, 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 really love this movie, so I do not intend to bring any, shame to the fact that they did this, but apparently, according to Gary Dauberman, who made his directorial debut with this movie...
After writing the previous Annabelle's, right?
Yep. He said, this is the Warrens picking up where they bring Annabelle home after we see in The Conjuring, after they visit the nurse's apartment. It happens a little while after that, so they bring it home, and they're aware of the doll's evil, and sort of worry about her presence among the artifacts. So before Conjuring 2 and after the beginning of The Conjuring. That means Rhode Island has not happened yet.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point.
And what's funny is, while that's true, they do show the box. The box is definitely in there.
That's true.
But the movie is set apparently in 1969, because I believe the opening of Conjuring takes place in 68. And The Conjuring doesn't take place until 71 overall, as far as the Rhode Island.
But if you look on the Wiki page, the Conjuring universe states that Annabelle Comes Home takes place in 1972, which is right after The Conjuring.
So I think that a lot of the fans have retconned it, which I am totally fine with, because either that or Dauberman misspoke.
It could be. It could be a thing where maybe he had his ideas, and then the universe, like James Wan might have had different ideas and had changed it, and doesn't need to consult with him necessarily about the overall franchise. It's more about the specific movies he's doing. If that's the case, there's an error there. This is a good. It would be a good case of where a good fun movie can survive that. Like, if it was a shitty movie, then it'd be like, that'd be another, nail in the coffin. Like, fuck this, can't even get that right. Because it's a good movie, and it's a fun movie or whatever, if it has its place, you're like, timey-wimey, bubble
stuff.
Yeah.
I really just don't care enough to be mad about it, because I like this movie way too much, dude.
I would say here, you know what I always do in this case? These are the reports of, these are almost like I almost think it's like you blame it on an unreliable narrator, because it's a story. Somebody's telling us a story of this. Maybe they got some details not quite right, and it's okay. The heart is there, and the main storyline is there, and that's all we need.
100%. So, in April of 2018, let's just get into it. I like to do this at the beginning. It's always fun for me.
I agree.
Is that Annabelle Creation comes out. It makes a ton of money because it's very popular. It was a huge step up from the first film.
Yep.
Warner is very quick to be like, we need another film. So in April 2018, they announced they're doing an untitled Conjuring Universe film. By July of 2019, or that would release in July of 2019. Later in April, we learned that it's the third installment of the Annabelle franchise, and that Gary Dauberman, who has written all the spin-off films to this point, is going to take over as director. He's going to make his directorial debut. And with that, we then learn as it goes along, they go to Comic-Con, and they reveal that it's all going to take place in the Warren house. Judy Warren is going to be the centerpiece of the film, and that Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are going to be in the film. To your point, this is Conjuring 2.5 or 1.5 or however you want to look at it. This movie gets made for about $27 million. It's a much more expensive movie than the others, even though it's still a smaller budgeted film compared to most. But they go all in. They have some fun. It's kind of the creepy version of Night at the Museum with a core cast of 4 characters, and the Warrens happen to be kind of on the outside of it.
Right.
But the thing I appreciate the most is that Doberman clearly loves the universe. He really looks at the way he can put the pieces together to make a movie that feels like The Conjuring, but his biggest ace in the hole. This whole cast is great. Like, I'm going to get that out of the way right now. This cast is incredible. This is maybe the best cast of the franchise outside of the original Conjuring.
Yeah, I fully agree with that aspect to it. I mean, we'll get into when I get into my side of things, I'll definitely agree with you on that. And it's also a economic cast as well.
100%. And their brilliant stroke of genius is that they know that they have to recast Judy Warren because the girl who played Judy in the original film, Sterling Jarens, she has gotten a little too old to play Judy in this film.
Right.
Young up-and-coming talent named McKenna Grace enters the picture and is the heart and soul of this movie. Much like Ghostbusters Afterlife, steals the entire damn thing from everyone around her because she is just that good.
Ports the whole thing on her small shoulders. It is... I can't even say how good she is in this. Like, she really just has something about her which I can't necessarily describe. She's not ever... Like, I mean, she's young. She's for a young actress like that, she just has a presence that can't be denied. And it's just a charisma, an interesting face. Like, you want to know what's going on in that head because she's obviously smart. She's obviously talented, and she commits 100% to everything she's doing, all the choices she makes. So she's the perfect cast to center the movie around.
Oh, 100%. And so this movie comes together in a way that I don't think a lot of us are expecting, because the Conjuring films are very serious, and not that this movie's not serious, but none of the movies are like a fun house of horror in the way that Annabelle Comes Home is. Annabelle Comes Home is a movie that goes balls to the walls to just have the most fun with the franchise possible by just opening the fucking can of worms that is the Warrens' magical room of evil possessed toys and things.
Right.
And really leaning in on it. But the other thing that I really like about this, and this is something you and I have talked about a lot, the running theme of these movies has really been about faith and family. This movie's a little different. Family is a center point, but it's more like family you find.
Right. It's still family. It's just not blood family.
Right. And faith is not playing as much a big a part as guilt is. And I thought that was very interesting.
It was definitely a unique take on it, and something that I think needed to happen, because eventually things after you're in the 7th film in the franchise, you kind of got to explore different things. Otherwise it just gets too repetitive. And you can get away with that in like the main franchise, Episode 1, 2, and 3. It's only 3 films, but now that we're getting closer and closer and we're spinning it off more, we want to explore a little bit different side of things. And again, it comes down to a brilliant stroke of having Judy Warren be the lead in this, as McKenna Grace as Judy Warren. But Judy Warren attaches you, already you're attached to this character. This is a character you know from previous films. You're not being introduced to a new character. You have to kind of follow her and go, do I care about this character? Do I like this character? You know this character. You like this character, probably. Or at least like her enough, because you already have a tether to her. She tethers you to Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga, who, as I said previously, were the main reason why the first 2 Conjuring films were kind of a step above the rest of the spin-offs in a way. This gives you that tether, and it works so perfectly. Which is another reason why, again, I go back to, I want to see a TV franchise, and I want to see Judy Warren as a lead, and I want to see the elder Warrens make guest appearances here and there. I think that would be a slam dunk of a thing. HBO Max, I offer you that free of charge.
I mean, look, McKenna Grace would. I have a hard time believing she wouldn't do it. Number one,
Yeah.
and number two, I also don't think that Vera and Patrick would say no. I think that they like the universe way too much to say no to something like that. There's a lot to play with that this movie really sets up, which is kind of funny because the truth is that I remember when this movie was coming out, that one of the things they talked about is they were like, there are so many new things that we put in the movie that we want to potentially make spinoffs of. Like they talked a ton about the Ferrymen. They talked a ton about the Black Shuck. They talked a ton about the little creepy monkey doll thing. Like there were plenty of different things that they play with in it that they were like, we could do spinoffs of all of these. But I think they also got to the point where they realized you couldn't spin off everything unless you had the story, which is why this movie works, because they decided to go hog wild on a bunch of ideas that they could play with here that may not necessarily they like hold their own movie. I guess that's the best way to describe it. These ideas that really may not work for a prolonged 2-hour film. And one of the things I said to you before we went away and watched this, I said that I thought there was something that might pull you out of the movie. And I'm very curious. I want to jump into it real quick. This is farther into the movie before we jump into everything.
Okay.
It kind of goes to this larger conversation. There's one thing in particular I think that stands out from all the others, and it's because it feels so supernaturally compared to the rest of the things we've seen in the universe. And that was the addition of the Black Shuck, which was the werewolf.
Right. No, it didn't take me out.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Okay.
It didn't take me out enough. And here's why. Because it's something I mentioned before, the economy of the characters. Right. And that is every character that's in this film. You have the Warrens at the beginning, and you have obviously Judy leading it. You have the babysitter. You have Daniela. And you have this Bob Got Balls guy. Bob's Got Balls, which I love. I love that. And all four of them, of those characters, they felt necessary. They felt like they belonged. They felt like they were cogs in the wheel. And so when the Shuck was outside chasing Bob around, it felt like a necessary component. And not only that, I think it was easier for me to swallow this because the room happened, because there's so many spirits and stuff in the room. It didn't pull me away that there's one spirit off here, left or right. This is a different spirits doing different things. It's different. It's like different bad guys being let out of the jail cell. Like it's like it's insane asylum run amok and all the crazies are coming out to kill you. That's why this works for me. If I didn't care about the characters, would it have taken me out? Potentially. But I do think actually more than anything else, it's the idea that it was just I could just chalk it up easy enough to go, oh, because it's another thing from the room that got out. Okay, I'm good.
Oh, no, I'm glad to hear that, because I was really afraid that was the one thing that, of all the things that happened, because very similarly to the Scarecrow, like the Scarecrow kind of felt out of left field in Annabelle Creation. Right. So I was wondering where you would go with that one, because again, it feels very out of left field, but I think you're right. I think it comes down to the characters. And that's what I want to, let's kind of hop into the movie.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I really love about this is that this franchise has pinned itself to one pivotal moment in all of the Warrens' studies or adventures or what have you. And that is when they initially get the doll from Debbie and Camilla. The nurses.
You've seen it so many times.
Every movie in some capacity goes back to this moment.
Right.
And so this movie starts with that moment.
Right. And I'll be honest with you, that starting off at that moment again did make me go, oh boy, here we go again. Like I'm a little tired of it. I'm not going to lie. Like I don't need to see that angle again. But I get why it has to do it, because you still got to reach out to newer people who haven't seen anything before. So it's not, at the end of the day, it was quick. This time it was pretty quick. Went through it, and it is different. I did notice it's different. Again, there's different there, and again that made it a little fresher. And the idea that we actually saw what happened after made it more palatable. You actually get to see it's like an extended cut. It's like getting the extended version of it, the extended cut.
And this is the thing I really like about this, because I was going to bring this up after the fact, is that the best part about this is not that we start there again. Because like you, it's like, oh, God, we're going here again. But I like the changes to it. There's a little more dialogue. They're talking to the Debbie and Camilla a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I like that they basically go take the doll.
Yep.
Like, they have this whole conversation. They're like, put it away. This thing needs to be destroyed.
Right.
And they're kind of like beside themselves that they want to save it.
Right.
So they give them the doll, and we're taken to a scene, and this is the brilliance of this movie. This movie is bookended with the Warrens.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
And this whole sequence with them is so great because, again, it shows why Farmiga and Wilson are so important as mainstays to this franchise. Their chemistry is undeniable,
mm-hmm.
and their character work is so good that this whole moment of them in the car with Annabelle in the back seat and them trying to get home, and the doll is already messing with them on their drive home, is so good.
Mm-hmm.
And Doberman, like, very quickly has built himself as someone who can build tension, but also, like, he builds a spook house. That's the best way to describe it. He's very good at building the tension. Then he pulls the tension away just long enough to throw a curveball at you and hit you another way.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Brilliant direction.
It is solid direction. I thought he had, like, I didn't, like, when I was watching it, a lot of times I kind of didn't think anything notable about Doberman. I was like, there's not anything I'm going, I got to see the next Gary Doberman film. Like, nothing like that.
I do, because it's Salem's Lot.
Well, okay, well, yes, I do have to see it because it's that different story. The idea behind it for me is saying,
fighting with you just to be a jerk, but like also it's Salem's Lot. That's my favorite Stephen King book, so I'm like very high hopes.
I'm interested, and I think he'll do a fine job. Because I didn't hate his direction either. I just remember watching it, going like, "All right, it's good. It's competent. It's good. There's some good stuff in it." I remember a couple of shots that I really did like. He did it. He built tension competently. I didn't think for me it was nothing extraordinary, but it got the job done. It didn't distract me being bad. That's all I need for these films. Sometimes I don't need Denis Villeneuve on every horror film. You know what I mean? Like,
I'll say this though, like for me, I won't say that he reaches levels of guys like Flanagan, right?
Flanagan Wan.
But I'll say this. I have seen much, much lesser works from debut filmmakers in horror than 100%. I saw out of Doberman. And the scene in particular that I'm thinking of, the scene in this movie with the Warrens has them, they end up at this car crash, and a girl passes away in the crash.
Right.
And so they're rerouted essentially to get back to the freeway. Ed is very bad with directions. He doesn't go to where they're supposed to, and they end up next to a graveyard, and the car dies.
Of course.
And the scene that I really love here is he gets out of the car to work on it. The fog starts to build up. He's got the hood up, and Lorraine has this map. And it's going to do the thing that you know it's going to do. She's got the map. It's blocking the windows, so clearly there's going to be a jump scare.
Of course.
And Doberman moves away from that. He
does.
Builds the tension and pulls away, and you don't get scared until you hear a voice.
Right.
And that's the move. That's the brilliance. It's the, I like your doll.
Right.
And it's so creepy. And Lorraine looks in the rear view, and this scene is perfectly shot because you see the face in the rear view, then it kind of goes over her shoulder, and it's the girl who just passed away.
Right.
And she was in the car accident. And the thing that I really like about this sequence in particular is that a lot of the times when we like hung out with Lorraine and we saw her powers kind of in motion, it was always like more of an ethereal feeling. Like I've always said it kind of felt like you were in the Insidious movies.
Okay, I see that.
For the first time, we were kind of seeing it more in the real world. In what it would be like for her to be sitting in the car and suddenly there's a spirit behind her. And then she looks out the window and you see the spirits in the graveyard kind of staring at her because they know that she sees them.
Right, 100%.
And that was what Doberman did really well. And it was something that, as we'll get later into, that I thought even with Judy, he did really well. And I think that he really builds that sort of real world tension of what it would be like to be someone with these weird powers that just sees things.
Okay, I will give you that. I'll give you that. He's definitely, and like I said, I never meant to slander him. I'm not slandering him.
I didn't think you did. This is
I've
my
definitely
very
seen him.
passionate. It was my passionate reasoning for why I feel this way, because again, I really love this movie, and I think that every time I watch it, I fall a little bit more in love with it. And in particular, the stuff that Doberman does, I always catch something and I'm like, that's very interesting.
What I will say, since you're talking about Doberman, I'll jump ahead to my favorite shots of the movie that were Doberman. I did think hit a home run out of it. A sequence in Judy's bedroom, Annabelle's there, and the rainbow light falls over.
It's one of the best. One of the best.
That right there, I was like, this guy knows what he's doing right here. And I did love that aspect of the whole, you seeing different things that goes on as the color goes on. It was just well shot, well angled, well performed, McKenna and everything else. And that was one of my favorite sequences in the whole movie because of it.
And that's kind of what I think I feel overall with this movie. And as we talk about it more, I'm very excited to get into it as we roll into the things he did. This movie is such a great character piece that happens to be a fun house of horrors at the same time. And it's not an easy balancing act, let alone for someone who never directed.
You know, it does. I think it does help him and help his case out that he's been around for so long, because he did write the stories. So he's worked with Juan, so I think he kind of picks up some things much better than just having a rookie director come in out of nowhere who has no history with the franchise. That definitely helped him out. And I'm happy it did. I'm actually very happy he directed this, because he was, like I said, when I say competent, I don't mean that as a bad thing at all. I mean that as I did not notice anything bad, and I was happy with it. And he did his job for me.
I guess the thing that's very interesting to me is that this same year we end up getting saddled with Dark Phoenix, or the year before we get saddled with Dark Phoenix, and that's it. Simon Kinberg is in a very similar situation. He's been around the franchise a long time. He's been writing the movies, and Kinberg drops the ball so hard as a director and so hard as a writer at the same time that it's very easy for me. And it's almost not fair, but it's very easy for me to compare the two, because you're picking up later in a franchise with characters that are already established. Now, Conjuring is a much smaller production, but even Dark Phoenix was a smaller production comparative to some of the X-Men movies, quote unquote.
Although, to maybe push back a little bit on that, it's not like Gary Doberman was directing The Conjuring 3 here. It wasn't a main part of the franchise. So,
but he did get to play with the Warrens. That's the difference. And I think that's why I can compare it just a little bit, because he still gets to play with the mainstay character.
Yeah.
I think it would be different if, say, Kinberg had not been involved at all, and then they gave him, say, New Mutants. Then it's a very one-for-one similar.
Right. Except
you're not playing with any major characters. He got to play with the major characters in the same way that Doberman did, but Doberman gets to do it in the confines of, well, I only need them for the beginning and the end.
Right.
And then Judy and her little cohorted group is like the focal point for the rest of the movie.
And I will say that I will really jump out and say that I was worried. One of the few things I had heard about this film, was exactly that, was that the Warrens were in it, but they had kind of bookended the film. And I was worried that, in a way, it's good to have them to tether. But at the same time, if you have them, that you take them away for the bulk of the movie, and what's left is less than compelling, is worse, it actually will make the film worse for me, because it's like you took them away. And why? It just seems, now it's like a cheap thrill. It's like a cheap tactic. But because the 4 cast members they used, and specifically McKenna Grace, and I'll even throw it out there too, I thought the actress who played Daniela was also extremely good.
Yeah, Katie Sarif, I want to say, I'm sorry if I said the name wrong. Katie Sarif is ridiculously good.
Yeah, and with those two in tow, I didn't actually miss the Warrens at all, which was, I was happy when they came back at the end. Don't get me wrong, but they weren't needed, and that is a stroke of brilliance somewhere along the way. I don't know how much I can talk about the actors with that, or how much that's Doberman's influence, or whatever the magic ingredients were. It worked.
I think it's a little of both. I think it's a little bit of the actresses, because they have to sell the characters, but I think the writing's there too, because something we were talking about off camera before we got on here is that the funny thing about this movie is that, comparative to some of the other Conjuring movies, and not to take away from any of them, This movie is surprisingly heartfelt, especially compared to a lot of the spin-off movies. Not a single one of the spin-off movies hits me emotionally in the same way that this movie does.
Great.
In the Daniela's entire arc in this movie, when you first meet her, she's so irritating. But when you realize the damage behind it, when you realize what she's gone through, when you realize why she's bothering Mary Ellen, why she cares so much about what the Warrens do, why she feels this connection to it,
why she's making the dumb decisions that always happen in a horror movie, but you usually get mad and yell at you. Like, why are you doing this? What the fuck are you thinking? You get this, and you're like, okay, it was a dumb teenage thing, but it totally makes sense within the character, and you feel for her. That's a golden thing to do, because horror films have tropes, and this film uses those tropes, but they use them well and believably, and like gain empathy from the viewer. So you don't mind
because again, they treat it like a funhouse in a way.
Yep.
And that I'm going to use that term a lot as we go through. Like, this feels like a funhouse of horrors. Mm-hmm. So you don't mind it because you also like the characters. And look, I don't want to say Madison Eastman is really good too. I've liked her. Yeah. The thing is I just like Judy and Daniela so much more.
Yeah.
They almost overshadow her, but Madison's very good. I've liked her in the Jumanji movies. I liked her in Goosebumps. Like, she's very talented. And I also really like Michael Cimino. Michael Cimino, Bob. And he's really good too. And that's where we can get into all of this as we start to break down the movie. But this movie is smart that it only has 4 kind of lead characters, and it's really 3 because Bob is much more of a support than he is a major lead.
And I think that's a good thing.
Care about them,
right? I think it's a good thing that he's taken away. I think if too much Bob could have ruined it, because I don't think Michael Cimino was a great actor in this. Like, he did his job well, but I kind of feel like a bit more exposure.
He's an awkward teenage boy, and it works.
I did love him singing the Bread song, which was nice. Which is great. But you're right. It is 3 females that sell and need to be at the focal point of this film. And that's why it works.
100%. And so the movie picks up. Essentially, the Warrens get the doll. Mm-hmm. They get back to the house, and Father Gordon's there. They bless the doll, put it in the container that we're all used to seeing Annabelle in. Mm-hmm. And he says, look, the evil's contained. It's all good. We jump about a year later. Again, now this is nebulous considering the timeline of the events.
Let me interject real quick. Maybe I'm watching these films now, and maybe we don't need it, but it kept running through my head. We never had any real definitive word on why the Annabelle doll is such a conduit versus other conduit.
I always just assumed it was the spirit that was attached to it.
Okay.
Because the spirit is so evil. Like, I think we're just supposed to assume at this point, because we're technically 4 movies in dealing with the doll, because you deal with her in The Conjuring, then you deal with her and so on and so forth. And actually, in a way, if you think about it, this is also like the one movie where we see the demon more than any of the other movies.
Yeah, that's true.
Which was something I wanted to talk about too. So my assumption is always that the spirit is just very strong, and it is like so tethered to the doll that it is able to conjure the things that are happening around them. And, again, when they're in front of the graveyard, part of it is that they know that she can see them, but it's also the doll is just a conduit. Like, it's raising all these spirits because it's pulling them all into one place.
Right. Okay, I can buy that. I'm just kind of curious of your thought process on that. I'm sorry. So go ahead with what you're saying.
No, you're fine. That was always kind of how I took it, though. I always just assumed it had to do with the presence of evil.
There's a note I wrote, and finally, actually, before you go on, the next note I wrote, McKenna Grace is wonderful. Go ahead from there.
Look, I'm going to say it right now, and I don't know if we're ever going to do it. I would love to cover the Ghostbusters movies in the future.
I think we can do that.
In particular with Afterlife doesn't work if you don't buy McKenna. 100%. And I think that was the reason that movie worked so well, was because of McKenna. That movie's a lot different if you have someone who is not that good in the lead. And that is how I feel every time I see her in anything. It doesn't matter if it's if it's Haunting of Hill House. It doesn't matter if it was Ghostbusters Afterlife. It doesn't matter if it's her small scenes in I, Tonya. She is stupid talented.
Yeah, and she disappears
ridiculous.
into those roles too. I looked her up, so kind of like, how old is she now and everything? I was looking up to see like where she was. I think she's 18. And all these like kind of like model shots or these like kind of head shots where she's even glamorous and everything else. I'm like, and then you look at her in Ghostbusters. When you get the nerdy character and it's played by someone who's like just a very Hollywood attractive or whatever, you don't buy it as much. You're kind of like, oh, it's just it's the Hollywood A-list actress playing nerdy. McKenna disappears into these roles so well. Like I remember seeing McKenna in Judy Warren and in Ghostbusters. I'm like, this is the same person. I always feel like a different person. You go and you start talking, like, okay, I see it now. But just like looking at them, like totally disappears into the roles. And so talented, such a talent.
She's an incredible talent. And Gary Dauberman and James Wan and Mike Flanagan and Jason Reitman, they were all very smart to strike when they did to get her into their projects. I mean, again, she's even in Captain Marvel. She doesn't really have any dialogue in it, but like everyone sees her talent and they're using it because she's good at what she does. Right. And Judy needs to be someone you care about. And the truth is I can't imagine a better actress to be the daughter of Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga in a movie than someone like McKenna Grace, who I think can bring their sensibilities to the role, but make it her own in the same way that she was the granddaughter of Harold Ramis.
Right.
But she does the Ramis-isms, but her own way.
But her own way. Yeah. It's not, it's actually, it's a filter. It's the McKenna Grace filter. It's not a copy. I can't explain it better than that, but it works really well how she does it.
Right. So we jump into the movie. It's about a year after the fact.
Right.
Again, give or take, the timeline seems to be a little screwy here. It's okay. It is what it is. It's not enough to pull me out of the movie. But Mary Ellen shows up at the house because the Warrens are going to go out on a case. We don't know what the case is.
Right.
And she's going to be taking care of Judy. And it's very clear early on that Mary Ellen and Judy have a big relationship. Yeah. She like beams at seeing her. She gets so excited. She runs down the stairs. She hugs her. And this is also in the fact that we're also learning that Judy sees the stuff that are being said about her parents. She's looking at a newspaper while she's eating breakfast, and there's a thing basically saying, are the Warrens frauds?
And the Warrens are adults, and they handle it their entire lives, but Judy has to go to school. Judy gets picked on. Judy gets bullied about these things, and she is a kid who can't really handle it. She doesn't want to handle it. It's a very interesting look. But she does have Mary Ellen as a babysitter, who is a very sweet character. But beyond that, we get to meet Daniela next. And I love the fact we already mentioned how much we like Daniela. She's introduced as the character you're going to hate, if you know 100%. What I mean.
She's very irritating, like I said.
She's irritating. She's the promiscuous person compared to the promiscuous girl compared to the more virginal Mary Ellen who follows the rules. She's the rule breaker kind of thing. It's that typical horror trope. And yet she never hits that stride, never hits that full-on God moment with her. And it's a subtle twist, but it's amazing. I don't remember when it was necessarily. Was it when I found out that her father was killed? Maybe that's when it was. But I think it might have been before that. You felt the humanity in her, and you never could commit to actually hating her. And that's a different tactic. Horror movies almost always have that character that you want to see get killed. It's always the one that you want to see the bad things happen to. You kind of I hate this person. Kill her off, Freddy. Kill her off, Michael. Get that fucker off my screen. This movie doesn't have that character.
No. And so what's interesting, I'm going to backtrack a little, and then I'm going to come back around to your point. Because you brought up something really interesting that I wanted to focus on a little bit, that I'm so glad you brought it up. The idea of focal pointing Judy's childhood, teenage years and being bullied for the things that her parents do is such a different take that you never really expected. It's right. You know how we talk about with the Marvel movies, you want to see the ground level heroes in a world where the Avengers are fighting aliens, but you want to see Daredevil fighting people on the ground that are like right. Kingpin. This is kind of that version of that, where what happens when the child of the Warrens is kind of ostracized at school? What does that do to her friendships? Like, her birthday's coming up and kids are making fun of her.
Right.
And they're pushing her, and they won't come to her birthday party. Like, the other parents are talking bad about her.
Yep. Real world consequences for the superhero activity of the Warrens.
Yeah, and I loved that. I thought it was so humanizing, and you really feel for her. And then you find out that Judy is starting to have the same problems that her mother has of seeing dead people.
Right.
Because she starts to see the priest at her school who's dead, who's watching her. And I love that the scene is so heartbreaking in a way, because she's sitting there and she's by herself at recess, and all these kids are playing, and she's reading a book. And before she leaves the house, she had grabbed a crucifix. Mm-hmm. And you don't know why. And then you realize it's because she pulls it out when she starts seeing this ghost, because she's scared.
Right. And so obviously it's been going on for a while too. It's not like the first time she's seeing it. She pulled the crucifix out because she knows this is potentially going to happen. Well, she doesn't want to go to school. And but I also love the fact that the priest isn't like a overarching storyline. It's like something that you kind of do. It's just the introduction. You see it, and it's okay, because I like having the spirits that aren't necessarily the big baddies that they have to fight. It's just the other spirits in the world,
because they exist. And this is like a whole focal point, because later in the movie, Mary Ellen says, remember, not everyone you meet is bad. That means that every spirit you also meet along the way will also not be bad, which I think is such a brilliant line of dialogue, such a brilliant thought for a teenage girl. But to your point, so we flash forward after that. She's at school. Daniela meets Mary Ellen at the grocery store. She confronts her and says, "You didn't tell me that the Warrens are psychics." Right. And she's like very dumbfounded that Mary Ellen's been hiding this from her. And it's real grating. Yeah. And that's the point. She's supposed to be real grating. And then she goes, she sees what she's doing. She goes, "What are you doing? You're going to a party you didn't tell me?" And she goes, "Well, look, it's Judy's birthday's coming up. We're going to celebrate it early. I'm going to make her a cake." And she kind of holds over her head. She goes, "Well, I didn't tell you who's over at the checkout." Right. Apparently, Mary Ellen has this crush on a boy named Bob. Bob's got balls. Bob's got balls. And
what a great teenager thing, because it's something that totally would happen, and but you don't need to dwell on it. It just is. You get the explanation, a little bit mini explanation later on, but it doesn't matter. It just is what it is.
Right. And so we get this whole conversation where she's kind of holding this over her head because she wants to go to the Warrens' house so badly. Yep. Daniela's like, "I'm going to tell Bob everything. I'm going to out you. I'm going to make your life a living hell." And so she kind of starts doing it while they're standing there. And Mary Ellen finally goes, Fine. You can come to the house. Just don't say anything."
Right.
And Mary Ellen leaves so quickly. She leaves the eggs behind. So Bob hands Daniela the eggs. Yeah, and Daniela goes, "Look, she likes you. Do something about it."
Right.
And that's after she's already like, "So Bob, you live across the street from the Warrens, right?" And she's trying to get him to come over that night. It's such a great teenage introduction, and it feels real.
Yeah, 100%. It feels genuine, like a teenager thing, and that's hard to pull off, because a lot of times it does not feel genuine. It feels genuine. This feels spot on with how something like this would happen. This does lead me to, I have 2 points in this movie that I had a hard time getting past. I still love the film, and overall I get past it. But I have a hard time is that I know the Warrens go away a lot, right? And the real life Warrens, the real life talk about Judy stay with the grandparents a lot for a reason. This whole tale, the whole story, the whole film hinges on the fact that the Warren, Ed and Lorraine Warren, who have seen the worst of the worst and have brought the worst of the worst home to their house, are willing to leave their daughter and a teenage babysitter just staying at the house with all these fucking insane Annabelle artifacts. Yes, they're blessed twice a week, whatever. They're locked up, yada, yada, yada. As a parent, I'm sending Judy away somewhere else to stay. I'm not letting a teenage girl and say, no, we don't go in there. No, we don't have parties. We don't, no. Because that's what teenage girls do. It seems wildly irresponsible to leave Judy Warren at home with the fucking Annabelle doll as the big worry, not even talking about all the other creatures that are in this house. Wildly irresponsible.
You're correct, but if they do that, we have no movie.
And that's why I kind of like I settled here. I'm like, it does bother me, and I'm like, this is fucking stupid. But because I did enjoy everything else going on, I was like, all right, I'll get past it.
I'll also say I'll give them the benefit of the doubt of the truth is that Mary Ellen seems a lot more reasonable than most teenage girls, so they probably didn't think half about it. The problem is you should anticipate a Daniela existing.
Right, exactly. And that Mary Ellen's very nice and she's very pliable. She's a nice girl who's going to let things, like, she's going to get walked over a little bit here and there.
Well, Daniela just existing is like you have to worry about a Daniela existing because Mary Ellen's will be walked over
100%.
And it is what it is. We have no movie if they don't do it.
And that's why, again, at the end of the day, it is a movie. I don't care, but it does seem wildly out of character. Like, I just feel like the whole thing is like, ugh. I mean, I'd have a hard time leaving a daughter alone with a teenage babysitter for because their trips are like usually more than 24 hours.
This one was only like overnight, I think, though.
Right.
So that, I think that's also a part of it. If it was a longer trip, I think that 100% she would not have been there.
Maybe.
But it felt more like this is an overnight sort of thing. So it is what it is, and we're hoping for the best. You're not wrong,
right.
But it's just like I've kind of accepted that that's just one of those things. But what I really love about this, and I think this is the moment I actually start to do, this is where I start to be humanized by Daniela.
Mm-hmm.
Because this whole sequence, once the Warrens leave and everyone's, they get back home from school and they're making cake and the doorbell rings, and here's another brilliant Doberman building up the tension. The doorbell rings and then it rings again, and there's like this creepy tension, and Mary Ellen goes to the door and there's no one there. She looks out the peephole, no one's there. She opens the door, no one's there. And then a bell rings behind her, and Daniela has snuck into the house, and she's like, look, I just tried to come in, and you didn't answer the door.
Right.
And it's such a great build.
Yeah.
But also Judy's reaction of, I'm sorry, Mary Ellen, who is this?
Right.
She's like, this is my stupid friend Daniela. Don't mind her. She's leaving after cake. But the thing I love is that Daniela shows up because she listened to Mary Ellen. Judy's birthday's coming up, and so she brought her a pair of rollerblades.
Right. And that's great.
Skates.
Roller skates, yeah.
And she brings her the roller skates, and it's like this very humanizing moment where you realize, like, maybe Daniela is really not all bad.
Right. There's a couple of conversations that Daniela has with Judy, and you find out that her brother is the one bullying her. He's like, and just so you know, he wets the bed. He didn't hear it from me, or maybe he did. I don't care. Right. And you're right. That's what it does. It makes it so like, okay, she's not that bad. She's a little impulsive. Yeah, she's a pain in the ass. Yeah, she's probably going to get us into trouble. But he can't hate her. You can't not like her at this point. She's just good. She's a friend. She's a friend. So
she is. And it's a great character piece. It's a great moment. But here's where it goes south very quickly, because Mary Ellen, of course, is like, why'd you give her roller skates? She can't be in here doing this. It's going to scuff the floors.
Right.
I'm going to get in trouble. And she goes, well, why don't you two go outside?
Right.
Don't worry about it. You guys go outside. You roller skate for a little bit. I'll be here. I'll watch the cake. Everything's going to be fine.
Right.
So they leave the house. And what does Daniela start to do?
Mm-hmm.
She starts looking around. She starts sniffing around, looking for things.
Right.
And she goes to the door. My favorite moment is she tries to pray to the spirits on the other side to unlock the doors.
So fun.
One of my favorite moments.
It is good.
The way the music plays, she goes to grab the handle after she's prayed to do it, and the door's not unlocked.
You almost feel like it is. You feel like it might be. You're like, yeah, does that work?
It works. It's a great moment. And then she starts sniffing around, and she's looking in the office because she's drawn to the office, and she sees the picture of the Warrens, and she's like, don't judge me. And she puts the picture down, and what does she find?
Is it Jesus? The picture of Jesus?
Oh, yeah, it was the picture of Jesus, not the Warrens.
Yeah. But same thing. That actually makes it even better. Don't judge me. Oh. And the keys are there. Oh, well, thank you. It's like, it's great. It's a great moment.
It's a great moment. So she goes down, she unlocks the door, and what does she do? She fucking opens the Annabelle door. And I love the line, though. What did you do to be behind the glass? Be in there? Like, what did you do to get locked up?
Right.
And she lets Annabelle out, and that's pretty much where all hell will begin to break loose. It's a slow build to it, which I love, by the way. They don't jump into it right away. They let it build. They give it time. And so she hears the fire alarm goes off. She runs out. The cake is burned.
Does not lock to the Annabelle's door.
Does not lock the Annabelle door. The glass is gone, or the glass is open. The doll is gone.
Right.
And Mary Ellen goes out to deal with the cake. Or, I'm sorry, Daniela goes, and Daniela and Mary Ellen meet up in the kitchen. She's like, "What did you do?
Right.
You burned the cake. Where were you? Like, what's happening?"
Right.
And she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I got distracted."
Right.
And then she's like, "Wait, where's Judy?"
Right.
Well, she was having a great time with the rollerblades until she fell and hurt her
knee. Right.
And Mary Ellen's kind of blaming her for it.
Yeah.
And she goes, "Well, where is she now?" She's out dealing with the chickens. Wait, they have chickens?
Chickens? Right. It's a very teenage thing. It's all teenage thing.
And that's where we learn, again, to what you just said, that, Daniela's brother's the one who's been bullying Judy. This whole moment is so great because it also humanizes McKenna, because this is where McKenna starts to kind of open up about the stuff she feels, the stuff that she knows. And that's where we learn about what happened with Daniela.
Right. 100%.
And that her father died in a car accident, and she blamed herself for it.
Right. And I love that the information is drip fed over the time. Like, if we have no idea about the beginning, then we know that she died. He died. Then we know it was a car accident. Then we know it was her fault. Eventually, that she was the one driving. Or she was the one driving. She was the one driving. And it all builds and builds and builds. It's like a counterweight on a seesaw. Like, she's annoying as fuck in the very beginning. You don't know anything, but the more you learn, you're kind of like, okay. And it ends up being even out. You're kind of like, okay, yeah, you're doing some stupid stuff. Yeah, you fucking shouldn't open the Annabelle door. You shouldn't have left it unlocked. But it all makes sense. But you have good intentions, and you're just a poor kid who's trying to talk to her dead father. You get it.
I do, and that's why very quickly the tide turns on my feelings overall on the situation, because it's like I can't be mad at her.
Right, you can't.
She just wants to communicate with her dad.
Right.
And that's why that moment when you see him, like the spirit of him in the house, and she panics real quick, and she's like, she starts to walk towards the house, and they're like, "Where are you going?" And she's like, "Don't worry about it. Like, I'll be right back."
Right.
And you just feel for her, because you realize she's trying to chase him.
Yep.
She cares so much about it, and yet at the same time, what are you going to do?
Right. Nothing. It's very sad, but all right. The next sequence I want to talk about real quick is we do have the doorbell ringing again, and it's Bob, and it's also Napoleon Dynamite as the pizza guy.
There is a sequence between this that we should talk about.
Okay,
the doorbell ringing time between this.
Okay, yeah, all right, yeah, bring that up. Go ahead.
And this was I just want to bring it up because I think it's a great tie-in to Creation.
Right.
But the doorbell rings, and it's a play off of what happened the first time. She looks out the window, or she looks out the peephole, no one's there.
Right.
And she's walking away, and the voice says, "Is Annabelle home?"
Right.
She opens the door, and it's the little girl who is Annabelle.
Right. Which is a good connection.
It's a great connection. It's very kind of creepy.
Right.
The music's just right. And she's like, "There's no Annabelle here." And she goes, "Yeah, there is. She's behind you." And she goes, "I'm sorry, what?" And she turns and looks, and no one's there. And you hear the kid laughter, which is fucking terrifying, by the way. Like, child laughter is fucking creepy.
Coupled with a horror soundtrack, yes, right. It is very creepy.
Yeah, like a child laughter mixed with a horror soundtrack might be the scariest thing in the world. I walked through, I remember it was one of the, I think it was called Graveyard Games. It was one of the haunted houses at Universal a couple of years ago. And at the end of it, you walk down a long, dark, pitch black tunnel, and all you could hear was like child laughter and whispers while you were walking through. And it was honestly one of the most terrified feelings I've ever felt in my life.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
So I'm terrified of creepy dead children is what I'm getting at.
That's what I'm hearing. Okay, fair enough. I get that.
All right, as long as we're on the same page.
Okay, we are. So I agree with that. But okay, so next time is Bob and Napoleon Dynamite, who's the
Bob
pizza
has
guy.
balls.
Because Bob has balls. It totally. I couldn't stop thinking of Napoleon Dynamite with the pizza guys there. I know it's not.
I
It's
feel
not
like
John Heater,
100% true.
but it just felt like it to me. And he's like it's one of those moments where I found out. I recently watched Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah, you did.
We know that's going to be we'd have a whole conversation about that, which we're going to ring back on.
Everyone,
but
please
go
see.
You really should go see it. You really should go see it. But one of my reviews of that said, like, it was amazing how something so they had scenes in there which were so stupid, so like almost parody like movie related, and yet so heartfelt, and it worked. It shouldn't work, but it did. And I feel like this is one of those moments where stupidity, this conversation between, I really shouldn't compare Annabelle Comes Home with Everything Everywhere at Once, because that's a different kind of masterpiece. But I'm trying to connect it to John Heater had this conversation with Bob, started saying something like, well, you know how to woo him. You got to woo him with rock and roll. And he's like, woo him? Oh, what did I say? Him? It's a random weird conversation that is stupid, but it felt real and genuine to the moment. Like, I felt like these characters were real having this conversation, and it made the stakes higher for me, for everybody else involved. And Pizza Guy had 2 seconds of dialogue, but he was memorable to me. So I like this moment a lot.
Well, and it's a great character building moment for Bob,
Right?
because
100%.
Bob is an awkward teenage boy who has no idea what to do,
Right. and
so he kind of buggers off after that, and we don't really see him again for a little bit.
It's actually very interesting you mention that, because like it's one of the things where like this movie defies stereotypes. Like, if almost any other horror movie, Bob would have been the jock. He would have been the jock that was cocky. He'd come in there. He'd been trying to like sleep with Mary Ellen. Like, I mean, he might be trying to sleep with her, but it's not that. That's not the tactic he's going for. He's just trying to actually date her. He's trying to like spend time with her.
He actually cares about her.
He does care. It's wonderful. It makes the film work more. But you expect it to be the jock, and it's not, and that's what I love about it.
Well, and I think you just kind of nailed it in a lot of ways. Is that the truth is that the reason that this works so well is that it kind of does play against all the stereotypes. It kind of goes against the things that we are used to horror movies being, and I think that's why I like this movie so much, because ultimately, at the end of the day, even for the stupid mistakes that some of the teenagers along the way make, it's out of human emotion and cost. Yeah. It's not out of stereotypical teenage behavior. And that's why it works. And so Bob kind of wanders off for a little bit, because he'll come back in a more pivotal sequence. But as this is happening, Annabelle is now out. Or the spirit of Annabelle, rather, is out, and now awakening everything else in the house.
Right.
And this leads to a great sequence involving Judy and the bride. Right.
Funnily enough, what leads into that is Judy has pizza, and she's watching TV, and you notice the Easter egg. You know that Easter egg there? That it's the actual Annabelle doll is on TV.
Oh, I did notice that. Yeah. I love that, by the way.
Because that's the genuine Annabelle doll. Right. They obviously chose to do a porcelain doll, whatever. The real Annabelle doll from the real life Warrens were Raggedy Ann dolls, basically, or a Raggedy Ann type doll. And they, from what I heard, is that they were worried about the rights for Raggedy Ann's.
No, Raggedy Ann told them no.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah, okay, Raggedy Ann told them no.
It makes sense if you're Raggedy Ann, not going to lie.
Yeah, I get it. Don't get me wrong. I understand why they're doing it. So we got a much creepier doll in the process. So thanks a lot, fucking Raggedy Ann.
Woo! But yeah, okay, so we have the scene with the bride.
And the thing I like about this scene, and I don't know if you caught it, it feels like a greatest hits of some of the things we've seen in the other movies, but in a very cool way, with the crosses turning upside down, but then the shadow of the nun, but it's actually it's not a shadow, it's actually her walking past a window,
right, and
then going into the other room, but then it's a little bit of the Crooked Man of the way the body moves,
yes,
and, the sound making it's so effective.
It is very effective.
They took 3 of the great horror sequences from all the movies, found a way to compound it into one, but do it its own way. And the design of the bride is just creepy enough that the moment it raises the knife over its head, like there's something about it because you don't really see the face,
right?
And that's what's so terrifying.
I agree, and like it actually made me think less of the Curse of La Llorona for that exact reason. We had the cheaper budget, and we talked about that last time we did this film, where it was a kind of like a cheap phase. It kind of took me out. Wasn't well done.
Right.
They could have done this. They could have done what they did in Annabelle Comes Home, in that, and it would have been much more effective.
I do not disagree with you, but it's a great scene. It's a great sequence, and it's kind of the sequence that kicks off the entirety of the rest of the movie.
Right.
Because from here on, this spirit is kind of unlocking all the things.
Right. It's a bunch of various attacks now from all different sides.
Yeah. Before we get to all of that, though, there is a great sequence. You brought it up earlier. Bob sings.
Bob singing Bread. Bread, of all people, of all bands. A short-lived band from the late 60s, early 70s. It's one of my favorite songs of the early 70s. Like, I don't listen to it very often. But he starts playing it, and he plays pretty well. He plays well. He's not perfect with it, which makes it even better. When he messes up a little bit, it's like, I'm an awkward teenager. Boy, I'm going to get that chord wrong, and I'll try it again. But it works, and it shows you, again, how great of a character Bob is, how great of a character Mary Ellen is, how great a character Danielle is. They're all, and McKenna Grace, again, has that moment where she shows that, like, the thing that young girls do sometimes where, like, I can't wait to get older and have a boy like that singing to me kind of thing in a way. And there's a little thing that McKenna Grace handles it with such grace and such, despite everything going on, she still has that, I'm still a little girl. Because a lot of times when they have a great actress like McKenna Grace or something like that, sometimes they get lost into this whole, like, you stop thinking of them as a little girl because they're almost too intelligent for their own good. They're almost too mature for their own good. McKenna Grace has these moments where it's like, she's still a little girl there.
Oh, and I forgot. I wanted to touch on this, and I'm glad we're talking about it. In what you're saying, this actually ties into it. There's a great scene in the movie where Mary Ellen discovers the Warrens' file, or Daniela rather discovers the Warrens' files, and we start to kind of get a snapshot of some of the stuff we're going to be dealing with in the movie because they hit the ferryman, they hit the blue shuck, they hit the bride, like they're going through all the things that we're going to kind of meet along the way, if you will.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
And one of the things I love about the sequence is that Judy kind of comes in and Mary Ellen's like, we need to get out of here. We shouldn't be looking at this. And Judy comes in and she goes, I'm going to be honest. I like snooping too. It's so childlike and so innocent. Yep. And that moment is so great. But then that's when you also, like, the more they start to push, Daniela starts to talk about Annabelle and Judy locks up and she goes, we don't talk about her.
Right. It's a great way to showcase how terrifying this doll is. Right.
And, that's why I always, to be honest with you, I always assumed that this took place after The Conjuring.
Right.
Because Judy had already dealt with Annabelle once.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, I wonder if that's one of the timeline kind of shenanigans sort of things, because the way I read it is she's dealt with it before.
100%. I read it exactly the same way as you did. Because
I think it's just a discrepancy of the 1 year thing at the beginning. That's my personal opinion. And I don't
this
really
definitely
care.
Takes place after The Conjuring. 100% does.
Yeah. So, but what I love about that whole thing is that it really leads to this sense of dread that, like, how fucked up is this doll?
Right.
And if you've never seen any of these movies, now you're like, what the shit has this thing done that, like, could cause you to feel this way?
To feel that terrified, right? When you're in the house of terrors, and you have one thing that's, like, well beyond above everything else that's in the house.
Yeah. And again, I think it comes down to McKenna is just so good. Daniela, Katie really sells the scene too, because she really underplays the fact that she's already gone into the room. Like, you can already see the pieces there. Like, how do you know where this thing is? Why do you know this? And she's like, oh, well, Judy, you said something earlier about everything's in that room.
Right.
And she's really playing it up, and that's when you realize, wait, no. No, not so much. And so, as Bob shows up, he's serenading Mary Ellen outside. He gets attacked by the werewolf, which is the black duck, and he's hiding in the backyard. Mary Ellen begins to be tormented by the ferryman, and she runs into, of all places, the room.
The room, of course,
to hide. Judy, on the other hand, is going to bed, and she falls asleep, and the Annabelle doll is in her fucking bed.
Oh God, it's so creepy. It's so creepy that she's doing that.
Mary puts her to bed and sees the doll, and she kind of looks at it, and then is like, "Oh, I'm gonna leave it." All right, and then Mary Ellen gets attacked by the ferryman.
Right. Yep.
And here's what I want to say. I think the ferryman is one of the coolest fucking inclusions in this movie.
Fully agree.
Love the design. I love the way it looks. I love the way that the character operates. I love the way that it disappears in the light when you shine a light on it, and the coins like fall out of the eyes. I just think it's so fucking cool. It leads to one of the great jump scares in the movie when Mary Ellen's holding the coin in her hand, and then the head pops up.
Good. Yes, that's so good.
I love the ferryman. The ferryman was one that they had talked about doing a spin-off of. I don't think the character can necessarily carry its own
movie, right?
But I fucking love it as part of this movie.
I fully agree with you as well. The ferryman would be the exact kind of character that would fit into a TV series that we're talking about, that kind of thing. Hour-long show or something like that. Yeah, no, I agree. This is a great moment. And Mary Ellen, this is where Mary Ellen kind of shines. She does a great job of, like, not being annoying with her choices, but, like, she's still got to fall into the dangers, fall into the traps and everything else. And you follow her and you don't want her to die, which is not likely for a lot of horror films.
I can't name a franchise where I like so many of the characters so much that I don't want to see them die. Yeah. And I think the Conjuring franchise, like, overwhelmingly makes me feel that way outside of the original Annabelle. Like, I don't want any of these characters to die because I like all of them.
Except for Annabelle 1 can go to hell.
I mean, that movie is garbage.
Well, I also have a couple.
I would never talk nicely about that movie.
No, me either. Well, to me, also Annabelle Creation, like you already know, I mentioned that there's a couple characters in there that I just couldn't care.
I think that you don't have to kill them. I just think they didn't need to exist in the movie.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. That's a different thing. That's a different story entirely. So, let's see.
So I got to ask you, like, we're talking about the ferryman and stuff, that we see a lot of different artifacts in this movie. I went looking into it before we got in here because I was just curious. I mean, obviously, outside of the 3 Conjuring films, like the mainstay movies, none of these have been based on true fact, right? Like, right. So I went looking to see, and I knew that the werewolf one was semi-based on, like, an actual case they did. They actually went out of their way. Like, most of the stuff that they used in this movie was semi-inspired or based on real Warren files. They were heightened or changed a little bit. The TV was more based on a mirror that was inside the room and things like that. But they were all kind of based on a real artifact, if you will, that you would have found in the room.
I think that's the way you go about it. And I think it's a way, like, I don't mind, like, for example, the real life Judy Warren pretty much loved her parents, but is very much against becoming a ghost hunter herself. She never wanted to take up the family business. Her husband, I guess, did a little bit. But I don't mind there being a fictionalized version of Judy Warren in a way, or a fictionalized version of this couple. Because I feel like we've broken away. This is not true stories. I think you can break away, but you base enough of it on something that's genuinely, at least, involved somehow. I think you can make a lot out of a little.
I 100% agree with you. And if Judy doesn't really want more stories told about her too, it's totally fair, and I understand it. Would I love it? Yes. Don't get me wrong.
No, it's not stories told about her. She doesn't care about that. It's more like that she didn't want to become the ones.
I agree. But I'm saying if she did not want, because you and I have pitched the idea of, like, more Judy Warren stories. If she is like, hey, I don't really want that, totally fair and fine, and I would never fault her for that.
Agreed.
But I was going to say, so we got to play with a lot of toys in this movie.
Yeah, we did.
What stood out to you? Like, of all the different artifacts, all the different creepy, crawly What was it that stood out to you in the movie?
Let me think on that, because I think you have an answer already in your mind, I think. So why don't you go first on that one?
I mean, I think mine was very clearly the ferryman. I just love the idea of it. I think that the ferryman is such a interesting concept because it plays on a little bit of Egyptian mythology and
Right.
kind of like a supernatural being of someone who is taking people to the other side. And I love the design. You know what it reminds me of a little bit? It reminds me of a little bit of the killer from I Know What You Did Last Summer. I
get that. Absolutely. Yeah.
A little bit of a similar design, which makes sense with the name Ferryman. Like
Right.
that feels like someone who would have been like working on a dock or, you know, looked like he worked around water. Very
Right.
similar to What You Did Last Summer. That's kind of the one that stands out to me. I would love to see more with that. If you could find a way to make Ferryman work, I'd be down.
Yeah, me too. I like that as well.
I think that's the one that, for me, that, like, look, don't get me wrong. Is it the Annabelle doll every time? Yeah, because they did some cool stuff with Annabelle. But, like, it was the Ferryman.
Right. I loved the bracelet, the mourner's bracelet that Danielle uses.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to see that explored more. She didn't get a lot out of that history per se, but enough that I kind of like, well, where did that come from? What is that from? Tell me more about that in a way. Because it definitely helps your father as like the malevolent spirit version of her father or whatever. But I did also like the ferryman as well. So I'd be down for more tales on all of it. Exactly what your question leads to though is exactly why I want to see a TV series. We explore all these things a lot more.
I look, I would never say no. I think that there's ways to do it. I would love to see it.
Right.
The movie doesn't do a lot for the next little bit because the movie just kind of becomes the Funhouse of Horrors that we've talked about. Everything from here on, for the most part, until the ending, becomes a lot of them dealing with the different spirits in different ways. You kind of brought it up earlier. I love the stuff with Annabelle, in particular with Judy in her room when she wakes up. What I love about this scene is that the ferryman starts going after Mary Ellen first. Mary Ellen realizes Judy's alone. Things are going wrong. So she goes up to Judy's room. She's pounding on the door. And again, Doberman. There's something brilliant in the writing and the direction of the scene as she's pounding on the door and the camera starts to move and pan over to where Judy is. Mary Ellen's sound and pounding on the door is getting quieter and quieter to the point
I like that.
He's not hearing it.
Right, that makes sense.
And I love that. Judy wakes up. I love you brought it up, the light, and you start to see it. First, it's the silhouette of the doll.
Right.
Then it's the silhouette of the young Annabelle.
Right.
Then it's the silhouette of the bride.
Right.
Then it's the silhouette of the demon.
Right. And
it's fucking creepy.
It's creepy as fuck. Yeah, absolutely.
And I'll say, I don't know about you. I liked seeing the demon in this movie.
I did too. I think like after 7 franchises, I've always been one I'd rather see less is more. But every once in a while, more is more. Every once in a while.
And they don't overdo it.
No, it's not.
But I loved actually seeing the demon because we get a glimpse of it a little bit in Annabelle.
Right.
And in Creation, kind of, but not really.
Right.
This was the first time that you really saw what the demon that inhabited the doll looked like. And it just, it's a creepy design. It
is. 100% it is.
Go
ahead.
Oh no, go.
I don't know. This is I don't know if your thing was related. Mine's a little bit different. It's a tangent I wanted to use. Now we're hitting towards the end. I did want to bring up the
Always
one.
Do the tangents. Always do the tangents.
One trope. This is the other. I mentioned before about the Wilson. I said the Wilsons. The Warrens leaving the kid home. That kind of threw me. There's something else in this film that throws me. And it's not just this film. It's films in general. It's the famous asthma trope. Beginning of the film, or towards the beginning of the film, you see Mary Ellen take an inhaler shot. And once you see that, you know it's going to come into play later on in the film where, she needs to get her inhaler. Someone needs to go outside and get the inhaler. And, of course, Ben kind of has to do it. And Bob goes off to town and, takes a baseball bat or whatever, the guitar or whatever to the to the creature. It's fine. But that thing, to me, it's a personal pet peeve of mine as an asthmatic. I have asthma. I have an
I
inhaler.
was going to say this is because you have asthma.
It's exactly what it is. Like, I almost just would rather see, like, it seems like I like having asthmatics in there. I don't mind that. But I'm just so tired of I'm going to show you the inhaler in the beginning of the film. Somewhere at the end of the film, I'm not going to have my inhaler. I'm going to have an asthma attack. And so that's going to be the trope that someone has to get the inhaler. Every single time. It just happens over and over again. That's my own. People might not even notice it. I notice it. So that bothered me a little bit. I digress. Just need to get that out there. I
appreciate your botheredness about it, but I like it because it leads to the moment of Bob taking a fucking guitar to the face of the werewolf.
And it explodes the way it explodes is actually very cool visual effects too.
Yeah.
It's like
it also leads to McKenna going out and like being brave.
Right.
But what I really like too is that the scene leading up to this is when Judy gets out and they realize what's going on.
Right.
And they go into the room and they see Daniela in there.
Right.
And they're like, what did you
do? Right.
And she's like, I'm so sorry, but I let her out. And Judy looks at her and she goes, what else did you touch?
Yeah.
And the way that Katie delivers the next line.
Right.
And she's like crying, petrified, because as she's been locked away in the room, like the door is slammed shut and the room has been tormenting her. The spirit's been using everything in the room to torment her. It was the organ it was the monkey,
yep.
Like all these things are tormenting her. And so she's already like at a wit's end of it all. And she looks at her and she goes, I'm sorry. I touched everything.
Yeah. And it's a scary moment. It's a frightening moment.
It's frightening. And Katie sells it.
Yeah. 100%.
And so does McKenna. Yep. Because McKenna on the receiving end of hearing it just looks like beside herself, befuddled and sad and scared and realizing like they have nothing left to fight right now.
Right. It's just all out there.
And it's all out there, and I kind of loved that. And again, I think it's also such a human moment for Daniela because Daniela didn't know any better. She didn't think this is how it was going to go.
Right. And it's like you hate her, but you can't hate her at the same time. You're like, I can't believe you did this, but how could you fault her for it? What are you going to say? Like, it's just
right.
I don't know. I just felt bad for her the whole way through. But
I do too, and I think again that's the beauty of it. The way that it's done.
100%, and that's how it works. Good job for Gary. I mean, I will say after all that, very competent work. Very good job for all of them. One of my favorite moments at the point is also the demon using the phone to pretend to be Lorraine.
Oh, so good.
That is a great moment because you're like kind of like you're waiting. You almost because the cast is so good, you almost forget that the Warrens are involved. So you hear her talking to Lorraine. Oh, she's going to call Lorraine. Lorraine's going to come save the day. And it's like that moment of all right, good. And then it goes further and further, and you're like, oh fuck. It's not Lorraine. It's not Lorraine. It's the demon still. And you're like, oh fuck.
Well, and shout out to. Of all people is Vera because Vera gets to sell it in a way that she doesn't get to normally play the character, even in a vocal capacity.
It's funny. I almost like it was like it's like this is the variant Lorraine Warren. You're gonna see a multiverse with the Conjuring verse where Lorraine's the bad guy or something, and it worked because I loved hearing her do it because she was very terrifying, and it was just a voice in a phone, very terrifying.
So from here. We end up seeing, unfortunately, Daniela gets grabbed by the bride.
Right.
Because she stays behind as McKenna goes outside to get the inhaler.
Right.
The bride grabs her, and we get the famous evil demon spewing nasty black goo shit into a protagonist in the movie. That is a Conjuring staple at this point. Someone has to get black glue, words.
Black
goo dumped down their throats in a sequence of pure terror.
Exactly. And it's exactly what it is. It's pure terror. And you worry about are we losing Daniela? I actually worry about the characters. Again, I love the fact that I'm worried about these characters. I want them to succeed. I want them to make it through. And that's what's funny. At the end of the day, no one dies in this movie. Like as far as like the characters go. Yep. You know what I mean? Like they have the death in the beginning with the car accident or whatever. but these usually have deaths, and this film doesn't have a real death associated with it. And yet, it still works.
I think that's the thing I like about these movies, actually. And the more I think about it, the more I enjoy it, is that these movies really don't kill off any of the main characters. I think that the characters have all pretty much been mainstays. Like, I mean, the rotating cast pretty much survive. That it's different. I'm not used to a horror franchise really letting characters survive. I mean, even spoiler alert now for Scream 2022, it took 5 movies for them to kill one of the 3 main characters.
Yep.
So like, it's just kind of interesting that this franchise has done such a good job of building around these characters that we know nothing can happen to them. I mean, theoretically, some of these characters they've created, sure, that's a thing that you could lean on, and any one of them could have, like, you could have decided that Daniela needed to die to ratchet up the tension, but like, I think that does a disservice to the stories that they're telling. You're muted, is what you are.
Sorry. Thanks. I thought Bob was going to be the one to die.
Yeah, right.
I felt like Bob was the character they were going to off, and he ends up being heroic, and it works. It's something about Bob's in horror things recently. Sean Astin, Stranger Things, Bob, and this. You know, it works, and I'm happy. I'm happy that it does work.
I am too, and I'll say this too. I think that a part of it is like, how would you explain that the Warrens had to deal with the death of someone, and that probably plays a part in it. Like, you don't really want to put real life people into a situation where they're dealing with non-real people who would have died. I think that feels like a bridge too far, and I think that they also realize that they can push these characters in different directions, which leads us to basically everything goes as you kind of expect. Daniela gets attacked. She gets possessed by the bride. She begins to attack Mary Ellen and Judy. But what I kind of like is that the Warrens kind of save the day without saving the day.
Yes. I read the big note at the end of the day is that the kids actually solve the thing. Like, they solve it without the Warrens, even if the Warrens do help out.
Yeah.
In their own way, in their own kind of way, in a way. I love that aspect of it because it makes sense that the whole film, the crucial parts of this film are without the Warrens. So to have the Warrens come back and save the day would it would weaken the whole premise of the movie. And I didn't know I wanted that until I saw it the way it is. Like, at the beginning, I want more Warrens because I love the Warrens in the Conjuring universe. I love seeing them together. I didn't want them to come home yet. I wanted them to solve it on their own, and they did.
And they do, but I love that they use footage of the Warrens to do it.
That's the coolest thing I saw. I gotta say, I remember reading when I went like, "That's enough. That works. That works enough around the demon. I guess so." But I was okay with it. Like, I can see somebody having a problem with it, going like, "Well, that can't possibly work." Right?
It does feel a little Deus Ex Machina, like I admit, but it works for me.
It did work for me too, which I was just surprised at how well it worked for me, because I did have that niggling like sense of like, but then as I watched, I was like, it does work. It does work enough for me. They've done so well with everything else. If they don't completely stick the landing like the tens from the Russian judge or whatever, I shouldn't say that right now with Russia at this point, but whatever. You know what I mean?
I get it.
They don't stick the landing completely to get the 9.5 out of 10 as far as the landing goes. It's okay. It's okay. It's not the end of the world.
Well, and the truth is like, as we've seen, that the Warrens are built to be characters who have like dealt with exorcisms and they've dealt with demons and they've recorded them. Like, so it's not a weird thing out of nowhere where it's like, and suddenly we have footage of the Warrens doing an exorcism that just happens to save the day, you know?
Right.
And what I love is that the footage is of the bride being exorcised.
So it makes it more
that
sense.
They got the dress from, so that it's the reason it works is because she is wearing the bride's dress because the bride has possessed her.
Right. Exactly.
And so it actually kind of comes full circle in a cool way that you don't really anticipate.
Right.
And I really like that. And it works. And I love it, man. Like it shouldn't work. It shouldn't. But in a franchise like this,
it does.
For some reason, it does.
And you know why it works for me too? Is because of McKenna Grace and Judy Warren. Like, Judy Warren being there as like the heir apparent, like, real life stuff aside, if she's not the heir apparent, I get that, but it's almost set up in the movie that she is in a way. She's involved. Right. She's seen enough. She knows what's going on.
She sees dead people.
She sees dead people. It's okay to have her be there and use her parents, what she's learned, right? She's passing on what she's learned, so to speak, in order to save the day, and it works for me.
I'm 100% with you, and that's why this movie is so good.
It is.
In general, I think. And so the movie kind of begins to wrap up. Ed and Lorraine show up in the morning.
Right.
The girl decide to tell them, hey, we're going to tell you what happened.
Right.
And the thing I like is that we cut to the birthday party.
Right.
Like it's kind of a hard cut, but we're with Judy, we're with Lorraine, and we're with Ed, and no one has showed up to the birthday party, and it's really heartbreaking.
Right.
And God, dude, McKenna sells this. She just looks so sad.
Yeah.
I just feel bad.
Can you take that off?
Bad.
Can you take that off? The hat.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, he's got the little hat on. But when the doorbell rings and you're expecting it to be another sequence involving something
right,
not good, and as it turns out, no, it's not that at all. It's actually
happy ending.
Everyone. Yeah.
Everyone comes
Daniela, Daniela, Mary Ellen, and Mary Ellen's new boyfriend, Bob. Who even Ed called says
Bob's got balls.
Not balls.
I think the only part that I didn't like is it's getting a little cheesy for me is I didn't need Daniela's brother to come. Like it's enough.
I
know. It's enough for me that Danielle's brother to stop bullying her. I didn't need the whole. I'm just going to turn everything around. Now I'm going to be your friend. Now it was like, okay, all right, get out of here. Get out of here. You're bothering me. Go. Kind of thing. That's how I felt about that. Again, it's a nitpick thing. It's not the end of the world.
I get it, but I also like that Judy also isn't like, yeah, let's be friends. Her response to him is sure. And I thought that was very like, okay, I could get behind it because sure is not like a good yes or a bad no.
Right.
It's just like, okay. Fine.
Right.
And that made me laugh.
I think what hurt to me is that the kid there, I mean, I don't want to disparage. I shouldn't say this. I will, because that's me. I don't want to disparage any kid actors, but McKenna Grace is such a great child actress at the time, and this kid's just not. He just comes across very, like, in a way. So like the connection just doesn't work for me. I think that's part of the reason why it didn't work. But especially compared to all the other actors in the film, like they all hit their notes perfectly. This kid seems like just like, I'm gonna stay here and say, yeah, okay, get out of here.
Good thing he has all of like 4 lines.
You're right, exactly, and that's why it's not that big of a deal. I'm saying that's why I was annoyed at that at the end. But that's the only thing. We're talking about little annoyances. And the film is so good that, again, like even the big annoyances I had did not derail me from really super enjoying this film. And since we're there, we should get to our rankings.
Daniela gets closure.
We you're absolutely right.
The thing I love the most is like it's all hinged on the birthday party. Don't get it twisted. It's all been about Judy and everything.
Right.
But what I love is that we get this really fucking quiet moment between Lorraine and Daniela, and she goes, "Look, you're blaming yourself for all of this, and you need to stop. Your dad's already told me, like." You need to let go. This isn't. It's so beautiful.
This is where the faith part comes in again.
Yep.
This is where it's like faith and the guilt. Right. It's a connective tissue there. It's not sledgehammer. It's just very subtle. It's very nice. They share a moment together. Daniela gets her closure, and I love the fact that you get. It's almost like a brief. Is it like a almost scandalous thing that she starts on? Like, just so you know, I went off with my boyfriend for 3 days. I didn't tell my parents, whatever. Then you get in, oh yeah, does Mr. Moore know? Well, he was the boyfriend. And it's like, okay, so it's still more. It's a great little moment. It solidifies the Warrens again, giving yet another touchstone of their cornerstone of that.
I found myself getting a little teary-eyed too.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah.
I when she starts to explain that like her dad has been talking to her and like hands her the picture back and lets her know, and
there's also great humor there too. There's a great little humor moment. I love the fact that it's like, I want my boyfriend. Yeah, I let a demon loose. All right, you win. That's fair.
It's not the same is what this is. Not
right. But yet she's a forgiving woman. She's going to forgive the kid for being a kid. And it's a really touching moment. And it showcases what we said before, what the Warrens at least the fictional Warrens, I don't really know much about the real life Warrens. The fictional Warrens that we've seen here are all about not just ghost hunting; they're about putting people and families back together again. Correct. And that's what they do with Danielle. And Danielle joins the family just for a day or whatever it is, but it's a connection, and she's whole again.
No, totally. And again, I think that's also the beauty of what we've talked about in general. Is that the other thing I really like is that. And we didn't really talk about this. There's a great scene when earlier in the movie where Judy she's really come around on Daniela, and she hands her the invite to her birthday, and she goes, "I don't think a lot of people will come, but will you be there?"
Right.
And she so for her to show up again, I brought it up earlier. This is a movie about family, but it's about found family, and it's Judy found family in her and Mary Ellen and Danielle.
Right.
And I love that. I find it really beautiful, to be honest.
I do as well.
I just think it's so great.
And you know what I love as well? And it's like a little just a send off and a little bit of a nod. You go back upstairs, and what does Ed do? He grabs
pulls out the guitar to play a song.
Because that's what he does. And that's what he does. It's like
it's almost criminal that we denied a song, though. Like, you
can't
can't pull out a guitar with Patrick Wilson on a guitar and then not play the song of whatever he's going to. Right. You know he's about to play some Elvis.
Absolutely he was. I mean, he's right there for him to play. But it's a great little nod again. So it's nice that the Warrens both have their little nod of how they handle things and how they help things out.
This movie really is the greatest hits of the Conjuring franchise in a funhouse package, and I really mean that in the night, but in the best way. Right. Like it can feel pandering, but it doesn't. That's why it works. Everything feels so real and so well handled and so well written, and the characters feel defined and the world feels so real. That's why it works. It could have so easily just felt like another fucking spinoff, the third Annabelle movie.
Right.
We're just gonna it surprises me that this movie has only a 60 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, this is not exactly the most well-received movie. I've seen some people I looked at some Letterboxd reviews after I watched it, and I'm like, really? They 2 stars, 1.5 star, 2 stars, and 3. I'm like, did we watch the same movie? Because I really thought this was a solid entry. This to me was, this is kind of spoiling my ratings a little bit. I think this is the closest we got to this is the film that hits closest to The Conjuring 2 for me.
I don't disagree with that.
So, all right, we didn't forget anything else. We should go to our rankings now that I already started bringing it up.
I mean, I feel like we have to. Can I get a mulligan on where are we at with our rankings right now? Just out of curiosity.
The funny thing is, the first 4 films of the franchise, we were exactly even. With The Conjuring, we both had 10.5. At Annabelle, we both had 2. The Conjuring 2, we both went back up to 10.5.
Right.
With Annabelle Creation, I had 6, you had 8. The Nun, I had 8, you had 7. And I might have overestimated that as the further I get it. I'm not gonna change it, but I might have gone a little higher than I should have. But that's
you probably should have been. That's okay.
I probably should have been a 7. That's okay. And the Curse of La Llorona, you had a 6, and I had a 5.5. Right. So with Annabelle Comes Home, do you know what you want to rate it, or do you need time?
I'm sitting here thinking about it, and I'm listening to the rankings, I'm listening to the ratings, and I think there's only one logical place to go, because I don't think it quite hits the highs of the Conjuring franchise as the 2 standalones, but I don't think it's that far off either, to be honest with you. I think this movie is a solid 8.5.
8.5. By the way, for everybody who's their first time listening, no idea what we're talking about. We go out of 11. We always turn things out to 11 on PLD projects. So it's from, I don't know. I actually never decided. Can we have a 0 if we really want it, or have to be as 1 our lowest?
I mean, we could absolutely use a 0. I don't think there's anything. I don't think that's ever going to happen between you and I unless we watch something truly awful. But
even then, I think we go to half because we're just too positive to getting a 0.
I mean, look, I even gave Die Hard A Good Day to Die Hard 1.5 out of 5. That was me being generous.
I think I might have given it a half. I think I might have given it just a half, but it's okay. We'll get there at some. I think we'll probably get there at some point too. All right, so 8.5. I might surprise you with this.
Okay,
I'm going full on 9.
I almost went there. I was very close. I almost went there. What did I give Annabelle? An 8?
You gave the creation, I mean?
Yeah.
Or Annabelle Creation gave it an 8.
You know what? I'm going to give this one a 9 too then. Because
Okay.
I think it's a full point higher without being... It's not The Conjuring, but it's a full point higher in my book than Creation.
Oh, easily, yeah. For me, it's 3 point. I couldn't go. It's definitely a full point higher than Nun for me. You know, I am going to go back and put the Nun down to 7.5. I think, because I think I just overestimated it for the tone.
That movie is a lot better than people give it credit for, though.
It is, and I think I was course correcting, like a lot of people hating it. So I think that's why I went up to an 8. But it's not really an 8; it's a 7.5, which makes it the difference between 7.5 and 9 better for me. I do think this is a 9 comparatively.
It just makes sense, I think. I think it's such a strong offering in the universe. It's so easily in the top 3 of the movies that they've made. I mean, that's a spoiler alert for The Devil Made Me Do It. It's not in the top 3, in my opinion, of the franchise. I
will interject real quick, and I'm very extremely curious to rewatch it now as part of this franchise to see where it follows me. I think I agree with you.
Yeah, I'm really happy that you liked this one as much as you did, because I know, like you said, this was a first-time watch. It was something that I knew I had wanted you to watch, because, I mean, just as friends in the time that we've known each other, I've always been the kind of person who I like to push my friends to watch stuff that I'm hoping that they'll enjoy.
Right.
And Comes Home has always been one that I think that people, even if you don't like horror movies, I think you can get on board to enjoy it. Like,
I think so.
I think non-Conjuring fans can enjoy the movie. I think that there's enough fun about it that it's a good movie.
I think Conjuring fans definitively will enjoy it more. But
100%. But I think you could still enjoy it as like a weird funhouse movie.
Yeah.
And I know I've used that term a lot, but that's just kind of how I see it. It feels like I went to a carnival.
Yeah.
And I went into like a spook house, and that spook house was just like bonkers and weird and kind of fun, and you laughed, and like that's what the movie feels like to me. It just it works, and I enjoy it so much. So I'm really glad that you did, because I really didn't want to have to fight you.
Well, because you would have lost, and that's okay. I understand that. But
that's fucking adorable that you think that.
Yeah, I know that. It's okay. I know that. But we don't have to fight. It's okay. We don't have to fight because we were on the same page, and I'm glad. And I'm glad we're on the same page also, because I feel like we're often on the same page, which makes it the times we aren't on the same page very interesting discussions. Because I feel like we gel with each other very much as far as our opinions go. But I do like disagreeing with you too. But this case, I'm glad we're on the same page for this one, because I don't want to fight you on this one at all either. I do love, again, despite some serious flaws at times, I still love it that much. So that says something to me about what they did with the world and what they did with the characters.
Yep. So. And look, I'll say this. Of all the, we haven't heard anything about this franchise, weirdly enough, since Devil Made Me Do It came out. And a part of that, I'm sure, is because of COVID.
Yep.
And I know that they've probably, the movie didn't do badly, but they probably are trying to figure out what's next as far as the franchise is concerned. But I think that if we were to do anything, you kind of brought it up earlier, I think a TV show is the best move. But I really wouldn't hate another Annabelle movie in some capacity, but it was led by McKenna Grace again. I don't know how you do it, or a Conjuring film that McKenna Grace happens to co-star in.
That's what I was saying. I don't care if it's an Annabelle movie. I want to see McKenna Grace come back, and hopefully with the Warrens. I'd love to see them both there, but if not,
that's my caveat. Is I want to see the 3 of them together, no matter what you're doing.
Agreed.
Because I like the characters. I like all 3 of them, and I like their scenes in the movie. We really didn't talk about it. There's scenes in the movie that they're very few and far between. But the couple of scenes that they had together, they feel so connected, and they feel so real as a unit.
Yep.
I want to see more of that.
I fully 100% agree with you on that. So, well, folks, I think that'll just about do it for us tonight. I appreciate you guys. We both appreciate you guys sticking with us, even though we had a little bit of a vacation, a working vacation, as it were. But we enjoyed
I was
watching.
going to say, I don't know if it's a real vacation or not.
Right. A vacation from this podcast, let's put it that way. Just that we didn't do it. We just didn't do the podcast. But I'm glad we're back. We're back on full on. We'll be back next week to take on the final entry in the Conjuring franchise to date. The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. Like I said, I'm really interested in seeing how this is. I think I saw it in the theaters and I haven't seen it since. So I'm curious to see what if it either goes up or down in my mind, especially after seeing the rest of the franchise, for sure. But also that means that's the next week is the ending of the Conjuring franchise. We'll rank the whole franchise and we'll move on to our next franchise. And I don't know if I've actually made this announcement or not yet, but I will.
I feel like we maybe have teased it in the past. Like, I feel like anyone who knows us knows that we're a fan of shapes.
Yeah, I feel like
this shape in particular.
But that's not our next franchise we're doing.
In my mind, it is.
Okay. I will say, I like where your head's at because that's where we are going. Or I will say, I will announce that too. We are definitively going to be doing the Halloween franchise. Halloween all the way up till Halloween Kills, Evil Dies Tonight, right in time for Halloween Ends, and which we're going to cover.
And you know what? I can't wait to talk about how much I love
Halloween
Evil
Kills.
Dying Tonight.
Me too. We are.
I'm just saying. I just want to throw that out there.
We are actually a duo who will go onto any YouTube channel and defend Halloween Kills against any storm.
Because you know what? Evil does die tonight. Because you're fucking wrong if you don't like Halloween Kills.
100%.
Oh, I said it. Oh, I fucking said it.
I agree. You're not fighting me in this one because I fully agree with you.
I know. I'm just sure that we lost like one or two of our listeners.
We might have. Hopefully not a patrons, but
I got a little intense there. I apologize.
It's okay. The next franchise we're actually going to cover is, I just mentioned the Patreon. Patreon.com/PLD projects. If you're at a certain level, you get to suggest a franchise for us to cover.
So this is Phantasm.
Not Phantasm. You're not a patron. You can't suggest it.
Wait. Okay, wait. I got another one. All right. It's not Phantasm.
Not Phantasm. Not Critters.
What? What are we doing? Come on.
It's not.
This is ridiculous. First, you tell me no to that. It's Tremors.
It is not Tremors.
What is happening?
We could do Tremors at some point. I wouldn't be. I would.
You're goddamn right. Tremors.
I would not be against that. Although I don't know if I would have. I don't know if I would get to speak during that one. To be fair.
Oh wait. I know what it is. It's Predator.
Again, I would love to do Predator, but it's not the one. That's not.
I'm quitting right now here on air. Ridiculous.
Our very good patron Brandon Buckingham put forth a franchise that he wants to see us cover, and I'm happy to do it. It is the live action Middle Earth franchise. So we're watching
the Hobbit movies again.
The 3 extended editions of Lord of the Rings and the 3 extended editions of The Hobbits, and we'll go through them in such detail.
Look, PLD, there's only one return, okay? And it ain't of the king, it's of the Jedi. Those Hobbit movies were boring as hell. All right?
Walk.
Anyone who's seen Clerks 2 knows that I'm just out here quoting Randall. I don't actually believe that. I'm actually very excited to talk about Lord of the Rings. I'll tell you what, right now though, we're gonna have to change the style of our discussion for those because this is already an hour podcast
on an hour and 40-minute movie. So that means for a 4-hour movie, that'd be what like.
Well, this is at not to call us out. We're at an hour and 57 minutes right now, and this was for Annabelle Comes Home.
Right. We're gonna figure something else. We'll have to do the highlights or something. I don't know.
I mean, look, I can't break the entire thing down unless you guys have 6 hours to spare.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the problem.
I can promise you right now, PLD and I do not have 6 hours to spare.
We do not. We are very busy guys when it comes to that. So we'll break it down. We will talk a lot about it. We'll hit definitely all the highlights as much as we can. I can't wait for that. And of course, if you want to join up as executive producer, we do have another executive producer who has not submitted a franchise yet. I will mention her in a second.
Phantasm.
I don't think she'll do Phantasm. I don't think so. Maybe though. Maybe she will because she's very
Phantasm.
nice.
Phantasm. Phantasm.
Okay, calm yourself. I actually would like. I like the Phantasm movie, so I wouldn't mind doing that as well. To be honest with you,
Hey, I'm out here trying to promote high art. That's all I'm doing.
High art. I don't know if I've ever heard the term high art associated with the Phantasm movies.
And you have never watched the movies properly.
No, I've watched them. I'm saying I never heard anyone describe them as those.
You're not understanding me. You have never watched them properly.
Oh, I didn't. Okay, yes, it's 2:30 in the morning. I don't know what it is.
You see what I'm saying?
I'm picking up what you're putting down now. I'm definitely picking up what you're putting down now. That I have heard that describe that, so that makes sense to me.
Correct.
Well, there we are, guys. Join if you do want to join us at patreon.com/PLD Projects. We'd love to have you there. We do a lot of different special things. We're going to make an announcement soon. We're going to do a hangout with the two of us. We're also going to be doing our second episode
for everyone involved
of Two Mediocre White Idiots in a Box, where PJ and I talk about one of our favorite shows of all time, Doctor Who. This month's episode will be regarding the David Tennant special known as Waters of Mars, which is one of my favorite specials and one of my favorite episodes of Doctor Who, period. So we'll talk about that, break that down. I'll have dates for you as soon as I know. It'll be a Sunday, mostly, but I don't know exactly when yet, so I'll get back to you on that. Beyond that, you realize you're putting up this screen and this is not a video thing, right?
I know, I'm just trying to distract you.
Trying to distract me. Okay, he's putting up a Hellboy deck of cards, or was it? I'm not even sure what it is. Hellboy deck of cards.
I bought playing cards the other day. I buy playing cards.
That's fine. That's fine. It's okay. Also, you can find episode of Crown Jewels. We wrote that back yesterday on Tuesday. Every Tuesday or so, usually about 5 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Eastern now. I think we're going to do it a little bit later. We're going to be going through the catalog of Queen, so please join us for that. And, of course, Scoundrels also on Tuesdays. Tuesdays, that is at 12:30 Pacific, 3:30 p.m. Eastern. And that's myself, Richard Dark Jarvie, Matty Gunner, and maybe Bedore will eventually show up at some point. I don't know. It's possible. We go over movie news, topics. You would have watched us yesterday. Yesterday, we talked about Michael Bay and Ambulance. That was our discussion yesterday, which I'm sure was fine. I love it. It's all good. What the hell?
PJ's never just invited. All right.
PJ's not invited to this one. It's just not PJ. But if he wants to come along, I have no problem having you on. Well, we'll talk about that.
Saying this because I'm sitting here, I'm just like, man. Like
the funny thing is, we're having this discussion.
I mock you in the chat.
We're having this discussion right now on air, but it's kind of like a Schrodinger's cat kind of thing right now, because technically speaking, as they're hearing this, Scoundrels already happened. So did PJ appear or did PJ not appear? I don't know.
No, PJ didn't appear yet because PJ has not seen Ambulance. He's just talking in a general tone.
All right, we'll get you on Scoundrels.
PJ will probably actually be seeing Ambulance while you're talking about Ambulance.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair. But, all right, guys, that's it for us. I guess anything else at Paul_Tanuzu on Twitter. I already told you the Patreon. PJ, where can the folks find you?
PJ_Campbell on Twitter and Instagram. Movie Trivia Schmodown. Hey, we write the questions. Be nice to the writers. We're only human. I just want to shout out real quick the Reddit thread who's been very kind to you and I the last couple of days. I really do mean that. You guys have been really great. I know, and just to the fans in general, we've been getting a lot of positive feedback and a lot of love for the season so far from our side of it. Like, right. I know that it's not always perfect, and I know, like, an Illumination movie snuck into DreamWorks somehow. Shit happens. We're working all the time. You can't imagine what it's like writing fucking 13 matches at a time and hoping that everything is perfect. Like, you stare at the doc so often, you start to wonder if you've asked the questions before or if you've just stared at them a lot.
And that's a God's honest truth right there.
I love the game. I love what we do. I'm very appreciative of all the kind words and stuff that you guys have given us. So thank you guys. It means a lot. Y'all are the best. And you can find me here. I hang out with my buddy. We talk about movies. It's great.
It's fun. I love it. Last bit of business here. I do want to shout out my patrons who have earned it. All my patrons are, and I wish I could shout you all out. But these are the ones who hit that certain tier.
You choose to be elitist.
It's the tier. It's the benefit. It's what it is. My producers, John Lastrina, Kelly W., Jeff Alterman, and Brady Parker. I really couldn't do all this without you. I really appreciate that. And our executive producer, Danielle Ramirez. Danny, she has a choice to make for us. What franchise does Danny
Phantasm.
I don't think Danny Joy's going to go with that, but maybe she will.
If I message her, she might.
You can message her right now. But Danny, we love you, and all my producers, Brandon, Jeff, Kelly, John. You guys are awesome. Thanks for hanging out and chat with us. We will see you next week. Like I said before, we'll see you next week. Conjuring, the devil made me do it. Yes,
This is the story of my life.
it is. Until then,
Stay mediocre.
stay mediocre.
Don't ever try to achieve more.
Never underestimate the power